Let's bring on our next guest and find out everything that's going on with Team Trump in these ridiculous cases. Our next guest is Mike Davis, the founder and president of the Article 3 Project. He's been monitoring all the BS cases. Mike, before we dig into the cases, we had big news break today from our new Speaker of the House, and I wanted to get your take on this and how this might help Trump in his January 6th trial case. Mike Johnson tweeting this out, that he's going to keep his promise and he is making all the January 6th tapes available to all Americans. And I believe he already put up a link. This is something McCarthy told me he would do on this show in January this year and then never did it. Thank you, Mike Johnson. Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, cheers to Speaker Mike Johnson. I think what the American people are going to see is what we already know, that January 6th was a lawful protest permitted by the National Park Service that got out of control and turned into a riot. There were people who got into the Capitol, but for the most part, the people, even the people who trespassed into the Capitol, were walking through velvet ropes, following police direction. They were illegal tourists. They were not insurrectionists.
You got it. That's what I firmly believe. And you had nefarious actors inciting the violence too at the forefront of the building. Antifa, BLM, some FBI plants, and yes, there were some idiot MAGA supporters that acted stupid that day. I will never, ever not condemn their actions. But to say this was a planned insurrection and Trump set it all up is the biggest load of BS I've heard in my lifetime. Let's hit the cases. The Michigan judge went, no, thank you, that's out. Colorado, we're waiting to hear back from them. And now some attorney in Wyoming, is it? Yeah. Is filing one to get him off the ballot in that state. What do you know about that one, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the Democrats' lawfare. They impeached President Trump for nonsense. They've indicted him 4 times for non-crimes. They illegally gagged him in 2 of these cases, which is a clear violation of the First Amendment. They are trying to bankrupt his business in New York for the non-fraud of a businessman paying back sophisticated Wall Street banks on time, in full, with interest as agreed, and that all backfired. So now they're throwing a legal Hail Mary. They're dusting off a 155-year-old Supreme Court constitutional provision from the Civil War to disqualify insurrectionists who engaged in the Civil War, and they're trying to say that January 6th was an insurrection, and they're trying to kick President Trump off the ballot. It is a Hail Mary. It's bogus. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to work here in Colorado, and they're going to use that precedent from Colorado and other states. So the Supreme Court of the United States needs to step up here.
Gotcha. That's what I figured. You'd go to a blue state where they can get it done. I was impressed that the Michigan judge said no and just dismissed it right on its merits at the beginning. But they'll use that as the precedent and try and get, another half a dozen states or whatever. But in the end, it's going to get thrown out. I think you're right when it gets to the highest court in the land. Down in Georgia, how's that case going? Because I just saw this headline that a judge has set a new trial, nothing to do with Trump. This is challenging Georgia's voting machine. A federal judge has ordered Georgia Secretary of State into court to defend the state's use of certain computerized voting machines. That's very interesting, ain't it, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I thought the Democrats made it a crime. They call it, insurrection and an attack on democracy if you merely question elections. And it looks like there's a lot more trouble down in Georgia than these Democrats pretend. And I would say this case down in Georgia by Fannie Willis is complete garbage. It is not a crime. It's certainly not a racketeering conspiracy to challenge an election. It's allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887.
Right.
It's allowed by the First Amendment. If it were a crime to object to a presidential election, Democrats would be in prison for objecting to Republican wins in 68, 2000, 2004, and 2016.
Thank you. I know. And just last week with the elections on Tuesday in Pennsylvania, they had machines, they admitted, flip the vote in a local mayoral race. So don't tell me the machines always get it right. Finally, the classified docs case, that one's getting moved to way next year, maybe even past the election, that judge says. And then we find out yesterday that the independent counsel, no charges for good old JoJo though, when he had documents laying by the Corvette, in the house, over at his Penn University office, all these damn places, but no charges on good old JoJo.
Yeah, the Democrats waited 30 months to bring these bogus criminal indictments, and they stacked these trials back to back to back to interfere in the presidential election. They're going after Trump for presidential records he's allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act in the office of former president, funded by Congress with federally funded staff, secure office space, and Secret Service protection. Yet they're going to let President Biden get away with having 5 sets of stolen classified records from his time as VP, and even as a senator, moved several times, unguarded for years, accessible by their Chinese agent, and almost certainly used to secure foreign bribes and corruption.
Yeah, talk about the double standard. All right, I'm out of time, but I got to get this in before I say goodbye to you, because you were the subject of lies on that piece of trash network, MSNBC, this weekend, when one of their hosts took a clip from an interview you did with my pal, Benny Johnson, where you were being facetious and funny and sarcastic, and they put this clip out there and acted like you really said all this meaningfully, and then tried to act like you were the devil. I want to play the clip. I got less than 30 left. We'll get your take on the backside. Roll it.
Who is that guy who thinks it'll be glorious to put kids in cages, I hear you ask? Just some rando with a podcast trying to draw more crypto and survival seed advertisers? Sadly, no. He's Mike Davis, a conservative lawyer and activist with a serious inside track to a top job under a President Trump 47 at the Justice Department. Now, Mike Davis is on their radar, not in spite of, but almost certainly because of his unhinged rhetoric. Calling kids in cages glorious barely scratches the surface of his far-right, frequently racist statements. I want to come to those in a moment. But there's something else big here, because Mike Davis is exactly what the Trump administration lacked last time around. A skilled, even competent veteran of Beltway legal politics and right-wing causes, one who seems keen to transform Trump's darkest fascist impulses into an actual policy agenda.
Well, at least he said you were experienced in the Beltway. Mike, a couple seconds
I'm actually
left.
very pleased by this 22-minute hit on MSNBC. The Article 3 Project has raised a ton of money today. Donate at article3project.org, and I promise that we'll put Mehdi Hassan in a cage when I'm Trump's acting attorney general.
Oh, no, you said it on my show. Now you know he's going to use that and say, Mike Davis said he's going to put me in a cage. Mike's joking, you dumbasses. Anyway, Mike Davis, president, founder, Article 3 Project. You know that's going to come. He's going to put it in the show this weekend. Thanks a lot, Mike. Take care. Talk to you soon. Be well, my brother.